What happens when Hollywood's most beloved star challenges the art world's darkest secret? When a security guard blocks a young painter from entering an exclusive auction because of his work clothes, everyone turns away. Everyone except Keanu Reeves. What unfolds next will leave you speechless, challenge everything you thought you knew about art, and reveal a truth so powerful it went viral across the globe. Before we dive into this extraordinary story, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. And if stories of courage and kindness move you, hit that subscribe button because tomorrow we're bringing you another incredible tale you absolutely cannot miss. The lobby of Westfield Art Hall shimmers like a palace carved from starlight and money. Crystal chandeliers hang overhead, each one worth more than most people earn in a year. Outside, luxury vehicles arrive in an endless procession: Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Maseratis, their doors opening to reveal women in designer gowns and men in perfectly pressed tuxedos. Laughter echoes through the marble foyer. Not the genuine kind born from joy, but the polished laughter of people absolutely certain of their place in the world. Tonight, art is currency. Reputation is the highest bid. And if you don't look like you belong, you simply don't. At the velvet rope entrance stands a man who looks completely out of place. His name is Luis Ortega. 27 years old, faded jeans, paint-splattered work shirt with streaks of dried blue and yellow across the fabric, steel-toed boots scuffed from years of climbing ladders and scaffolding. In his trembling hands, he clutches a small wrapped canvas against his chest, like it's the most precious thing in the world. Because to him, it is. Sweat gathers at his brow, despite the cool evening air. He looks up at the massive banners fluttering above the entrance. Charity Gala and Art Auction, celebrating modern masters. The words sting like a slap. Luis has dreamed his entire life of seeing his work in a place like this. But he's not here to sell. He's here to deliver, carrying nothing but hope wrapped in brown paper and a dream that refuses to die. A tall security guard notices Luis immediately. His posture straightens, his eyes narrow with practiced judgment. "Sir, this is a private event."
Guess only. The tone isn't cruel, it's simply firm.
The voice of someone who has delivered this line 1,000 times before to 1,000 different people who don't belong. Luis swallows hard, his throat suddenly dry. "I'm just here to drop something off." "A painting." He lifts the canvas slightly, as if offering proof of his innocence. The guard's eyes move from the wrapped frame to Luis's worn boots, then pause deliberately on the dried paint caked under his fingernails. The judgment is instantaneous. "You're a delivery guy?" "Not exactly," Luis replies quietly, his voice barely audible over the laughter spilling from inside. "It's for one of the organizers." "Which one?" Luis opens his mouth, but the words catch in his throat. The truth is crushing, he doesn't know. A friend of a friend mentioned that an artist's submission might be reviewed at this gala. Luis saved for weeks to buy materials for this single painting. He poured every spare moment after exhausting workdays into creating something beautiful. He has nothing more to offer but hope. But hope doesn't open doors in places like this. The guard frowns, impatience creeping into his expression. "I'm going to need a name. Otherwise, you'll have to leave it here." Luis tightens his grip on the painting. His knuckles turn white. "It's fragile. I can't just leave it on the floor." Behind the guard, another burst of laughter erupts from inside as guests sweep through the double doors. Camera flashes flicker like lightning, illuminating faces filled with effortless confidence. The guard sighs, his hand hovering near the velvet rope. "Look, man, I'm just doing my job. People are paying thousands to get in here. You understand?" "I do," Luis says softly, defeated. "That's why I came early." The guard steps forward, his body language making the decision clear. "I'm sorry, sir, but dressed like that, you can't enter. You'll make people uncomfortable." Luis looks down at his clothes, the uniform of honest work, now transformed into evidence of unworthiness. Then he looks at the wrapped canvas, feeling its weight multiply with shame. He forces a small, broken smile. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." A few guests glance over as they pass. One woman in a shimmering silver gown whispers something to her husband. Another laughs under her breath, not loudly, just enough to be heard. Luis's ears burn with humiliation. He wants to disappear. To melt into the marble floor. To become invisible like he's been his whole life. Just then, the valet outside opens the door for someone arriving late. The crowd inside suddenly stirs with electric interest. Cameras lift, flashes ready themselves like weapons preparing to fire. Keanu Reeves steps through the entrance quietly, wearing a simple black suit and carrying a paper coffee cup. No entourage, no fanfare, no pretension whatsoever. His calm presence stands in stark contrast to the vanity swirling around him like perfume smoke. He nods politely to a few people but seems almost detached, lost in thought, existing in his own peaceful universe. As he moves toward the registration table, something catches his attention. A commotion near the door, a guard standing too tall, chest puffed with borrowed authority. A young man shrinking, beneath the crushing weight of humiliation. Keanu's gaze lingers on Luis's face. He recognizes that expression immediately. The same weary look he's seen on countless hardworking people dismissed for how they look, not who they are. The exhaustion of being invisible. The quiet desperation of someone fighting to matter, in a world determined to ignore them. Something inside Keanu shifts. He sets his coffee cup down on a nearby table and begins walking toward the door. The guard doesn't see him at first. He's too busy repeating his rulebook lines, too focused on being the wall that keeps those people out. "Sir, please, I'm asking you nicely to step back." Luis nods, trying desperately to hide the tears threatening to spill from his eyes. "I understand." He turns slightly toward the sidewalk, the crowd behind the rope blurring into soundless shapes of judgment. That's when the murmurs begin. "Wait. That's Keanu Reeves." Heads turn like dominoes falling. Conversations pause mid-sentence. Phones are subtly raised to record what happens next. Keanu stops a few feet away from the confrontation, his expression unreadable but powerful. "Something wrong?" he asks the guard in a quiet, even tone that somehow carries more authority than any shouting could. The guard freezes, suddenly realizing who he's talking to. "Mr. Reeves, no sir, just... This gentleman doesn't have credentials." Keanu glances at Luis with eyes that actually see him. "Really see him? What's your name?" "Luis," the young man replies, his voice almost a whisper, hardly believing this is happening. "Luis," Keanu repeats softly, as if honoring the name by speaking it aloud. Then he looks back at the guard with calm certainty. "He's with me." The crowd behind them falls completely silent. Someone gasps. Audibly, another whispers in disbelief, "Is he serious?" The guard blinks rapidly, his entire worldview shifting in real time. "Sir, I didn't know." Keanu cuts him off gently but firmly. "It's all right. You do your job well." But he comes in. Luis stares at Keanu, completely unsure if this is real or some beautiful dream he'll wake from any second. "You don't have to," he stammers. Keanu's smile is slight but genuine. "I think I do." He steps forward and holds the door open, motioning for Luis to enter first, a gesture of respect that speaks louder than any speech. The guard hesitates, caught between protocol and the reality standing before him. Finally, he moves aside. Cameras flash like fireworks. Inside, the gala chatter resumes, but now it's tinged with electric curiosity. Everyone wants to know why Keanu Reeves just walked in with a man in paint-stained jeans and a nervous look in his eyes. Luis takes a slow, shaky breath, clutching his painting tighter, and follows Keanu through the doors, into a world that has never welcomed people like him. Chapter 6. The golden prison of pretension inside. The air smells faintly of champagne and expensive perfume that costs more than Luis's monthly rent. Polished marble floors reflect the glow of chandeliers like a mirror, showing two different worlds. Luis's worn boots squeak against the pristine floor, a sound painfully out of place amid the quiet grace of designer heels and leather Oxfords. Dozens of heads turn in synchronized judgment. Some guests smile politely, their faces carefully arranged masks of civility. Others don't bother hiding their whispers. One woman in diamonds leans toward her husband, her voice carrying farther than she thinks. "Is that a janitor? Why is he with Keanu Reeves?" Luis lowers his eyes, wishing he could vanish into the walls themselves. Keanu places a steady hand on his shoulder, an anchor in the storm. "Ignore them," he says quietly, his voice like a lifeline. "They see what they expect. You're here for what you create." Luis nods uncertainly, having no idea what to say. his hands trembling slightly as he adjusts the painting still wrapped in humble brown paper. Arthur Gray, the auction host and owner of the prestigious Greystone Gallery, notices their arrival. He approaches with an elegant smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes, the kind of smile practiced in mirrors and perfected over years of dealing with wealthy patrons. Mr. Reeves. Always a pleasure. Arthur extends a manicured hand. We didn't expect you so early. Good to see you, Arthur. Keanu replies evenly, his tone professional but distant. I wanted to bring a guest. Arthur's gaze flicks to Luis, then back to Keanu with barely concealed judgment. His smile tightens almost imperceptibly. Ah, I see. A friend? Something like that, Keanu says simply. An artist. Arthur's eyebrows lift in polite surprise, but his tone noticeably cools. How fascinating. Well, make yourselves comfortable. The auction begins shortly. As Arthur walks away, his posture radiating dismissal, Luis exhales shakily. Keanu turns to him with a calm, reassuring smile. Let's find a place to stand. You'll want to see what the world calls art tonight. Luis nods, still completely stunned. For the first time in his life, he stands inside a room where every wall shimmers with paintings valued at more than he's earned in his entire existence. Yet none of those expensive pieces carry as much truth as the one trembling in his paint-stained house. Chapter 8. The weight of being seen. They find a quiet corner near the back of the room. Luis's reflection shimmers faintly in the polished glass beside him, reminding him with brutal clarity how utterly out of place he looks among the tailored suits and diamond necklaces. He clutches his canvas closer, feeling its edges press into his palms like an anchor keeping him from drowning. Keanu glances at him with gentle curiosity that holds no judgment. You painted that yourself, didn't you? Luis hesitates, then nods. Yes, I didn't mean to bring attention. I just thought someone here might give it a chance. Keanu studies him for a long moment, seeing past the nervous exterior to something deeper. You were willing to walk through those doors knowing they might not let you in. That takes courage. Luis tries to laugh, but it comes out small and tired. It's not courage, sir. It's desperation. Keanu shakes his head slightly, his voice carrying quiet wisdom. Maybe both. The lights dim dramatically. The host's voice echoes through the hall as he begins announcing the evening schedule. Spotlights bathe the stage in golden light as waiters pass trays of champagne to guests who barely notice the people serving them. Guests lean closer to admire glossy catalogs of the art on display. Each page lists paintings worth more than Luis has earned in a year, some more than he'll earn in a lifetime. He sees the names of artists he's followed online, their portraits airbrushed to perfection, their biographies reading like fairy tales of success. He imagines his own name printed there. Luis Ortega, painter of light. It's a foolish dream, he tells himself, but one that refuses to fade. Keanu's gaze follows Luis's eyes to the catalog. He sees the longing, the hope, the quiet pain of wanting something that seems forever out of reach. Don't stop believing that your work belongs, Keanu says softly. Sometimes the world just needs to be reminded what real art looks like. Luis swallows hard, his throat painfully tight. For the first time that night, he lets himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he isn't completely invisible after all. Chapter 10. When laughter becomes a weapon. Sound of crystal glasses clinking and murmured conversation fills the room, as the initial tension from the doorway slowly settles into buzzing curiosity. Though the commotion has faded, eyes still trail Luis as he stands beside Keanu. Every step he took earlier seems to still echo in the space, bouncing off marble and whispered judgments. Arthur begins the auction with practiced showmanship, his voice smooth and commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate art not only as beauty but as legacy. Each brushstroke here tells a story of vision and sophistication. Luis almost laughs bitterly at that last word. Sophistication. It's everything he isn't. Everything his world could never afford to be. His reality is paint fumes in tiny apartments, chipped brushes held together with tape, nights that end with him washing his hands in cold water until the colors fade but never completely disappear. He looks down at his fingers, still faintly stained with blue, the mark of honest work that these people will never understand. Keanu notices the gesture. You create something they can't buy, he says quietly. That makes them nervous. Before Luis can respond, disaster strikes. A waiter passes by carrying a tray of champagne glasses. Luis tries to step aside, but in the crowded space, the waiter brushes too close. Time seems to slow. A glass tips, spilling golden liquid across Luis's already paint-stained shirt. The sound of breaking crystal follows. Sharp, sudden, unmistakable. Heads turn with synchronized precision. "Oh, I'm so sorry," the waiter gasps, bending down quickly to gather the shattered pieces. "It's fine," Luis murmurs, trying desperately to hide the spreading wet stain on his faded shirt, trying to become invisible once more. From a nearby table, laughter ripples through the air, soft but unmistakable. Deliberately cruel. "I guess the help's getting a little too close to the guests," a man in an expensive suit jokes, drawing chuckles from his companions like applause for his cleverness. Luis's cheeks burn with shame so intense it's almost physically painful. He turns away, eyes fixed on the floor, wanting nothing more than to disappear. But before he can retreat into the shadows where people like him belong, a familiar hand reaches for a napkin. Keanu is beside Luis in an instant, dabbing at the wet fabric with calm, careful precision, treating this moment with the same respect he'd give anything else. "Don't worry about it," Keanu says quietly, his voice steady and kind. "It's just a shirt." The laughter nearby softens, then dies completely into uncomfortable silence. People who were smirking seconds ago suddenly find their drinks fascinating. Luis looks up at Keanu, completely unsure what to say, his eyes beginning to glisten with tears he refuses to let fall. Keanu meets his gaze directly, speaking words that Luis will remember for the rest of his life. They laugh because they've never painted with their own hands. They don't know what real work feels like. The statement hangs in the air like a challenge. Luis swallows hard, his throat impossibly tight. For the first time that entire night, he doesn't feel small. He doesn't feel like something to be ashamed of. The moment passes quietly, yet its weight lingers in the air like the echo of something profound. People try to return to their conversations, but the laughter doesn't come back as easily. The mood has shifted in ways they can't quite articulate. Luis stands motionless for a few seconds, his shirt damp but his spirit somehow steadier, stronger. He manages a faint smile at Keanu. "Thank you," he says softly, the words carrying the weight of a lifetime of being dismissed. Keanu shrugs gently, as if what he just did was nothing remarkable. "For what?" "Helping a friend." Luis blinks hard. The word friend feels almost foreign, revolutionary even. It's been years since anyone used it that way with him, someone who actually meant it. "You don't even know me," Luis whispers. Keanu's tone remains calm, absolute. "I know enough." They stand together for a quiet moment as the next painting is wheeled to the stage amid theatrical fanfare. Arthur's voice carries through the hall again, rich and perfectly rehearsed. Next up, a remarkable piece from a Parisian visionary entitled "Silence Before the Storm." Starting bid, $40,000. The audience reacts instantly with the reflexive enthusiasm of people performing wealth. Numbers climb rapidly. Bids are shouted from every corner of the room like a competition. To prove who has the most disposable income, the painting, a stormy blend of blue and gray, reflects perfectly in Luis's observant eyes. He whispers under his breath, more to himself than anyone. "40,000 for that?" Keanu hears him. His response is quiet but revealing. It's not the paint they're buying, it's the name. Luis exhales slowly, the truth of that statement settling like a stone in his chest. "Names I can't afford to have." Keanu turns toward him, his gaze direct and meaningful. That's how they win. They make you believe your work has no place here. Luis studies his own hands again, rough, calloused, permanently marked by paint that won't wash away. "I spend my days painting other people's walls. By the time I touch my own canvas, I'm too tired to dream." His voice carries the bone-deep fatigue of years spent unseen, unacknowledged, unvalued. Keanu nods slowly, understanding completely. That exhaustion? That's truth. And art needs truth more than it needs perfection. Luis looks up, uncertain if he can believe that anymore after everything he's experienced. Across the room, a new cheer rises as another painting sells for nearly $100,000. Cameras flash like celebration fireworks. Champagne glasses lift in toast. Arthur smiles proudly on stage, glowing in the reflected wealth of other people's money. Luis looks away, his trained artist's eye catching the subtle details others miss. The uneven lighting, the shadows where colors don't quite meet, the technical flaws hidden by hype and reputation. It isn't jealousy he feels. It's distance. These people inhabit a world where art is an accessory, not a heartbeat. A decoration, not a lifeline. Keanu notices his expression, reading the emotions playing across Luis's face. "You see things others can't," he observes. Luis frowns slightly. What good is seeing if no one's looking back? Keanu's smile is faint but meaningful. Then maybe it's time someone did. Their eyes meet briefly. Luis doesn't understand what Keanu means. Not yet. But something in his tone carries a quiet promise that will soon change everything. The bidding continues its hypnotic rhythm for another hour. Paintings come and go, each accompanied by applause that sounds more like obligation than genuine appreciation. Luis watches with growing disillusionment as six-figure sums are casually thrown around for pieces that technically impress but emotionally leave him cold. Luis watches with growing disillusionment as six-figure sums are casually thrown around for pieces that technically impress but emotionally leave him cold. Then something unexpected happens. Arthur Gray moves to the microphone after selling a piece for $200,000. He pauses, checking his notes with a slight frown, clearly dealing with something unplanned. A murmur runs through his production team near the stage. Arthur's polished composure shows the first crack of the evening as he spots Keanu standing with Luis near the back. His eyes narrow almost imperceptibly. The tension from earlier hasn't disappeared, it's been waiting. Keanu, sensing the moment has arrived, gently places a hand on Luis's shoulder. "What you brought tonight," he says quietly, "deserves to be seen. Not hidden away because someone decided you don't fit their image of what an artist should look like." Luis's pulse quickens with sudden anxiety. "What are you—" But Keanu is already moving through the crowd, walking with calm purpose toward the stage. People part like water as he passes, whispers following in his wake. What's he doing? Is this part of the show? Arthur watches Keanu approach with visible apprehension, his practiced smile flickering uncertainly. When Keanu reaches the stage, he doesn't climb up. He simply stands at its base and speaks in that quiet, carrying voice that needs no amplification to command attention. "Arthur, there's one more piece that should be considered tonight." The entire room goes still. Arthur forces a laugh that sounds strained even to his own ears. "Keanu, we have a set program." "I know," Keanu interrupts gently but firmly. "But sometimes the most important art is the kind we almost miss." He turns and looks directly at Luis, then motions for him to come forward. Luis freezes, his heart hammering so loudly, he's sure everyone can hear it. Every eye in the room swivels toward him. This is his nightmare, being the center of attention for all the wrong reasons, but Keanu's steady gaze holds him, anchoring him against the wave of panic. Slowly, with legs that barely support him, Luis begins walking toward the stage. The wrapped painting trembles in his hands. Each step feels impossibly long. The crowd's whispers build like gathering storm clouds. Who is that? The guy in the paint-stained shirt? This has to be a joke. When Luis finally reaches Keanu, his voice is barely a whisper. "Please, I can't." They'll what?" Keanu asks softly. "See you?" That's exactly what needs to happen. Chapter 14. The painting that changed the world before Luis can protest further. Keanu carefully takes the wrapped canvas from his trembling hands. The crowd watches with a mixture of confusion, curiosity, and thinly veiled judgment as Keanu begins unwrapping the brown paper. Arthur stands at the microphone, clearly uncomfortable but trapped by the unfolding spectacle. Cameras that were pointed at the stage now swivel to capture this unexpected moment. The paper falls away, and there it is, Luis Ortega's painting, revealed to a room full of people who never would have looked at it otherwise. The image shows downtown Los Angeles at sunrise. The sky burns with streaks of gold and violet, colors mixed from leftover house paint and pure determination. Buildings catch light unevenly, some glowing, others still sleeping in shadow. In the foreground stands a construction worker, small but dignified, gazing toward the horizon as if dreaming of something beyond the skyline. The brushwork is rough, layered, imperfect, but it's alive in a way none of the other paintings in this gallery have managed to be. It carries emotion that no amount of technical training can teach. It shows truth that money simply cannot buy. For a long moment, the room is absolutely silent. Then someone near the front whispers, "It's beautiful." Another voice, uncertain, "Is it?" "It's so unfinished." A third person, quieter, "It feels real." Like an actual person painted this, not just a name. Keanu holds the painting up slightly, letting the chandelier light catch the colors Luis mixed in his tiny apartment during stolen hours after exhausting workdays. "This," Keanu says, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, "is what art looks like when it comes from truth instead of transaction." Arthur clears his throat, trying desperately to regain control. "Keanu, while this is certainly touching, we have procedures. This piece isn't cataloged, hasn't been appraised, doesn't meet your what?" Keanu interrupts calmly. "Your standards? Tell me, Arthur. What exactly are those standards based on?" The question hangs in the air like an accusation. Arthur's carefully constructed facade begins to crumble. "We feature artists who've earned their place through training, recognition, through privilege," Keanu says quietly. "You mean through privilege?" Gasps ripple through the crowd. Some people shift uncomfortably. Others lean forward, sensing something important is happening. Luis stands frozen, completely overwhelmed, wanting to disappear but trapped in this moment he never asked for. Arthur's face flushes. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Keanu looks around the room, his gaze touching every face. How many artists never make it into rooms like this because they work 2 jobs just to afford paint? Because they don't know the right people? Because they wear the wrong clothes? The silence that follows is deafening. Then Keanu does something that will be replayed millions of times across social media. It will spark conversations in art schools and coffee shops and living rooms around the world. He looks directly at Arthur and says with absolute certainty, "I'll make you a deal. Put this piece up for auction next. If it doesn't move the crowd, if no one sees value in it, I'll personally match the last sale price, $100,000. The collective gasp is audible even outside the building. Arthur stares at him in complete disbelief. You're serious." "Dead serious," Keanu confirms. Luis grabs his arm desperately. "No, you can't, it's not worth..." Keanu turns to him with gentle conviction. "It's worth exactly what truth is worth. And in a room like this, that's priceless." Arthur Gray stands at the microphone, his entire world tilting off its axis. He's built his reputation on being a gatekeeper, on maintaining standards, on knowing what real art looks like. And now Keanu Reeves, one of the most famous people on the planet, is challenging everything he stood for. The cameras are rolling. The crowd is watching. Social media is probably already exploding. He has no choice. "Fine," Arthur says through clenched teeth, forcing his professional smile back into place. "If that's what you want, Keanu, let's see what happens." Assistants nervously move forward to take the painting from Keanu and place it on the auction stand. Under the bright lights, Luis's work transforms. The rough edges give way to warmth. The imperfect brushstrokes tell a story of exhaustion and hope, of a man who works through the night to capture the first light of morning. The hues of gold and violet meet at the skyline like 2 worlds colliding. The world that Luis knows and the world he dreams of isn't perfect, but it's achingly, devastatingly real. Arthur takes a deep breath, his hand shaking slightly as he raises the gavel. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announces, his voice not quite steady, "we have an impromptu addition to tonight's auction. A work by local artist Luis Ortega. The name means nothing to anyone in the room. That's precisely the point. Let's begin the bidding at $100. Silence. No hands raise. A few people chuckle uncomfortably. Someone in the back mutters, "This is embarrassing." Luis closes his eyes, feeling every fear he's ever had about his work confirmed in this brutal moment of public rejection. Arthur tries again. $100 for charity? Anyone? Nothing. Only the sound of glasses clinking, expensive shoes shuffling, whispered judgment spreading like poison. Then Keanu's voice cuts through the noise, calm and absolute. $100,000. Time seems to stop. The words hang in the air like they're made of solid matter, too enormous to fully comprehend. What did he just say? Did he say 100,000? For that? Arthur nearly drops the microphone. His mouth opens and closes soundlessly like a fish pulled from water. Luis feels his knees weaken. The room spins. This can't be happening. This isn't possible. Keanu. Arthur stammers. Surely you don't mean $100,000. Keanu repeats clearly, leaving no room for misunderstanding. That's my opening bid. The silence that follows is absolute. Then whispers begin to ripple through the crowd like wildfire. He's lost his mind. It's a publicity stunt. There's no way that painting is worth. But before the mockery can fully form, something shifts in the room. People begin looking at the painting again. Really looking this time. They see the raw emotion in every brushstroke. The story of a working man's sunrise painted by hands that know what actual work feels like. The authentic beauty that exists when art isn't created for galleries but for survival, for meaning, for the desperate human need to make something beautiful in a world that tries to grind beauty down. A woman near the front stands up slowly. Actually, she says hesitantly, looking at it again, there's something very moving about it. Another voice joins. The light. The way he captured the light. Then another. It reminds me of my grandfather. He was a house painter too. The tide is turning. Arthur, sensing he's losing complete control of his own event, tries one last time. Are there any other bids? No one speaks. Not because they don't see value now, but because bidding against Keanu Reeves in this moment would be siding against something much bigger than art. It would be siding against truth itself. Then I suppose, Arthur swallows hard, his face flushed with a combination of embarrassment and something else, maybe the first flicker of shame for how he's treated people. Like Luis, his entire career, he strikes the gavel down. Sold for $100,000 to Mr. Keanu Reeves. The room erupts. Applause fills the space, not the polite golf clapping of earlier, but genuine, overwhelming, emotional applause. People stand. Some are crying. Others are smiling with something like relief, as if they've just witnessed something that reminded them why they loved art in the first place. Luis stands frozen, tears streaming down his face, absolutely unable to process what just happened. Keanu walks over to him, takes the painting gently from the stand, and places it in Luis's trembling hands. This belongs to you, Keanu says quietly so only Luis can hear. I bought it to prove it has value. But you're the one who truly understands the price of color, the cost of dreams, the worth of never giving up. Luis tries to speak, but only a sob comes out. Keanu pulls him into a brief, firm hug. Keep painting, he whispers. The world needs what you see. By morning, the video has been viewed 50 million times. The clip of Keanu calmly saying $100,000 plays on every news station, every social media platform, every digital screen across the globe. The headlines scream, Keanu Reeves stuns art world with $100K bid for unknown painter from janitor to genius. The painter no one saw coming. Keanu's act of kindness that broke the internet. Luis Ortega's phone doesn't stop buzzing. Hundreds of messages, interview requests, offers from galleries who wouldn't have looked at his work just days before. He sits in his small apartment, the same cramped space where he painted by lamplight after exhausting workdays, watching his own face on television. It doesn't feel real. The reporter's voice echoes from the TV. A working-class painter from East Los Angeles has become an overnight sensation after Hollywood star Keanu Reeves paid an unprecedented sum for his artwork at an exclusive charity auction. Luis turns off the television. The silence feels heavier than the noise. A knock on his door makes him jump. He opens it cautiously, expecting another reporter. Instead, Clara, his elderly neighbor, stands there with tears in her eyes and a wide smile. Mijo, she says, using the affectionate Spanish term, I always told you the world would see your gift. Luis hugs her, finally letting himself cry properly. I don't know what to do, he admits. She pulls back, holding his face in her weathered hands. You paint, Luis, that's what you do. Just like you always have. Only now they're finally paying attention. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.